What's up, internet? So, as promised from the last video, today I'm going to try and dye the lenses that I got for the turn signals for the Datsun orange. I think it's pretty common for the lenses to come in clear. The clear kind of looks cool if you get an orange bulb, but I want to keep it like really stock looking, so I'm going to try and dye them. So funny enough, I learned this technique a really long time ago, probably, over 15 years ago, when I played lacrosse in middle school and high school. What we used to do is dye the heads of our lacrosse sticks and customize the mesh and all of that, sort of along those same lines, just with a different kind of plastic. So here are some of the basic things that you're going to need. So this is called the stovetop method, and with plastics, in order to make them accept the dye a little better, you need to heat it up. So I'll be filling up this pot with water, just enough to make sure that they submerge all the way, and they'll probably float up a little bit. So you want to get a big pot that you don't care about getting dirty, because the dye might dye the pot or stain it. Then you're going to need a monogrammed towel. It's just trust me on this one, you're going to want it. And then you want your dye. So the dye that I'm familiar with is RIT dye. This is a little different than what I'm used to. This is for synthetic fibers, but since synthetic fibers are basically plastic, I think it should work. They just didn't have any other orange dye at any of the stores I went to, so I just got this from Michael's. It was a couple bucks, and we'll see if it works. Now you're going to wait until the water is brought to a boil. I hear that if you watch the pot, it will never boil. So try that out. I'm going to let this boil. Let it boil.
Yeah, you got the
Alright, so the water started boiling. I'm going to start to mix in the dye and then let it cool down a little bit. I don't have a thermometer, so I kind of have to just guess on it, because it says that the water should be between 180 and 212 degrees. So I'm just going to let it cool down a little bit after I mix in the dye. So I'm not going to pour all of it in, just in case if I mess up I can do it again. And you're going to want to stir it. So I have these kebab skewers that I'm going to use to mix it up, as well as kind of like chopstick them in, because I don't want to stain my nice pair of tongs. But if you have a cheap pair of tongs, that is the best tool to use. I don't want to mess mine up, so I'm just gonna go for it. My water is cooling down a little bit. To get it between the range of 180 to 212, just need to bring it a little bit down from boiling. So it's been cooling off for about a minute and a half or so, and now I'm going to try and dunk in the lenses. So I'm going to have them in for a minute at a time and then try to fish them out with my chopsticks, and we'll see if we can dye them and not break them. So here we go. So start the clock. And so I'm going to mix them around while they're submerged, just so they don't get like a spot from them resting on the bottom. Alright, almost at a minute. Alright, let's see if we can fish these out. So I was kind of thinking I could get in through the holes. Alright. So they look pretty good. I think I'm going to leave them in for another minute. Coming up on 2 minutes. And let's pull them out and see what they look like. So that's one downside to doing 2 at a time and using these chopsticks, because I don't know if I'm getting the same one out or not. Alright. So it's getting there. I think I'm gonna do another minute. The lenses have been in there almost 6 minutes, and I think that I need to heat the water back up just to get the dye to penetrate into the plastic a little more, because they're doing pretty good, but I just want them a little darker, so I'm gonna leave them in for a little while longer, turn the heat back on, and check on it in a minute or two. And so this is not a very strict set of rules, or it's just meant to be a guide, because every situation is going to be different based on altitude, temperature, amount of dye, amount of water, and time, and the type of plastic. So just use these general rules, and if you keep an eye on what you're doing, you should be able to get the results that you really want. We're coming up on 10 minutes in the water, and I'm going to pull the lenses out. So there's number 1. They are still kind of hot, so I would not recommend grabbing them with your bare hands, but they're not too hot where they can't be handled. So this one, it got distorted. See the difference between the two? So this is a danger of doing this, and that is why I'm really glad that I got 2 sets. So obviously this one, it reacted to the heat a bit differently, and it really did not like it. I'm going to have to try again on this lens, which I think is the right hand side, which coincidentally is the one that I actually need. So now what I have to do is put in the other one long enough to where it will match the shade pretty good. So that's kind of a bummer, but you know, you win some, you lose the rest. Alright, so after a quick panic and regrouping, I was able to get 2 lenses dyed. So this one definitely warped real bad, and this one was warped, and I tried to fix it by heating it back up and then bending it, but then as you can see, it cracked. But I did get a full set out of them, and I think the color is pretty good on them. I would say that the right hand light is a little darker than this one, but I think it should be okay. But they look pretty good. I'm glad that I got 2 sets, because these are now trash. What I found to be the problem the first time was that the water was too hot, so you need to let it cool down a little more than I did the first time, or else you're going to get some serious warping or potentially damage the piece by melting it. The second time, I just let it cool down a little bit, took it off the heat, made it so the plastic was more accepting of the dye, but it didn't heat it up so much that it actually started to distort it. Pretty successful little project. I'm really stoked on how they turned out. One thing, I might put this in the dye a little longer. I don't want to push it because I don't want to ruin the lenses that I got, but I think it was pretty successful for first time since high school trying to dye this stuff. I forgot that that's something that you need to do after you dye them, is rinse them off in cooler water, like lukewarm. Yeah, that's our little science experiment for today. I'll get those installed on the car, and we'll be one step closer to getting that done. It works, you just have to be careful, take your time, and yeah, that's about it. Thanks again for watching. Keep it small.